In the last session, we covered and discussed skill development and improvement, and we focused on self-learning. We mentioned that it's a very important skills and capabilities to have for the entrepreneurs, for the entrepreneur to be self-learner. And I mentioned that I would like to share with you some perspectives from the Jewish-Israeli culture. Before we go and give a few examples, I want you to pay attention when we talk about the self-learning, to pay attention when we improve self-learning, what other skills are being improved. When we go through the methodologies that we're going to discuss in the next few slides, just think where it touches other skills and capabilities. Okay. The two areas that I want to share from the Jewish-Israeli culture, one is to do with the concept called Shabbat, which relates to the Google 80-20 employment and job description rule. And the other one is just to talk about one method of the Jewish-Israeli learning. Google, a few years ago, introduced a concept and policies and procedure for employment and job description. And it was promoted in the organization in order to encourage employees to learn something new, to try something new, to explore, to discover, to innovate, to do. And in this policy, in this rule, Google states and says employees to spend 80% of their working time working on tasks related to their job, but we want you, our employees, to spend 20% of your time learning something new, or you work on something that you like. So think about it. The employer gives you about 2 hours a day or 1 day a week to go and do other things that you like and to learn something new beyond the scope of your work. So Google saw it is important to take and separate and allocate the time and space needed for it. You can tell it to employees, you can tell it to people, go study and go learn. But when you put emphasis and regulate it and put it into your policy and procedure, you force people, you encourage people to go and do it. So this model was to promote and encourage self-learning, creativity, innovation. And many organizations adapted it in different variations. Some gave employee a day a month, some saved 10% of their time, some saved only the engineers, some says it must be work-related, but many organizations around the world adapt and apply this model. And later on, many of these organizations report improvement and the gain that they receive due to creativity and innovation of the people who work in the company. So this is related and relevant to where you do corporate entrepreneurship. But of course, that you want to do the same when you are self-entrepreneur. You want to allocate the time. You want to make sure that you set aside time and space to do it. But what if your company or your boss don't give you the time to do it. You work for a company and they don't come with these policies. They don't give you the time. You are going to be an entrepreneur. You want to take the initiative and to do it yourself, regardless what your company is doing. You don't need somebody to tell you what to do. So you want to allocate the time to learn something new. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. You give it to yourself and take whatever works for you. 20%, 10%, 1 day a week, 30 minutes a day. After work hour, outside of the work hours, if you don't get it, for yourself. Even if your employer is going to benefit from it. But the first one to benefit from it, it's you. Of course, if you're going to be a self-entrepreneur coming with your ideas and you taking it to the market and you start a new startup company, you're going to benefit from it. In the Jewish culture, they didn't need Google or other policy. In the Jewish culture, we have been doing it for thousands of years, generation after generation. We had this concept. We had this concept of called Shabbat. Shabbat is a day of rest from work, from any kind of work. Work for a company, work for yourself, and even work at home. So the Shabbat is a day of festivity. It's once a week. We do it weekly. Every Saturday, every day of the same day of the week, we set concrete time from Friday evening sunset for about 24, 25 hours. And this is where the Jewish people exercise freedom from regular labor of the day-to-day life. We do it at home, we do it in school, we do it at work. There are some exceptions for emergency. But until recent generations, Jewish communities and Jewish people around the world on Friday evening would stop everything that they do. They would sit for nice meals with their families. They rest from what they do, even the house chores, and spend time with family and friends and learn and study and learn something new. They engage in restful and learning activities. So this practice and this concept is embedded in the Jewish law, and it's also is part of the labor law in the modern states of Israel. All manufacturing, all buses, all stores were closed for these 24 hours. In recent years, some people want to have some reform, so not everyone is doing it, but the people who maintain the Jewish tradition, the Jewish culture, they do it to some extent. Even in the military in Israel has this policy for Saturday, for Shabbat. Unless it's emergency, even the military stop of working. The Shabbat is kind of an island in time to rest, to reflect, and to study, and to discover something new. So the Jewish culture, for many, many years, for generations, promoted education, self-learning, and learning something new. In the Jewish culture, learning is a lifelong norm. This is a key value. The ancient scripts of the Jewish people says and states and guide the Jewish people to learn every day, days and nights, young people, old people, rich people, poor people, at home and on the road. Jewish tradition of lifelong learning, commitment was practiced generation after generation for thousands of years. And there is a specific method in the Jewish learning. So in the Jewish learning, and I'm mentioning the Jewish Israeli, because the Jewish people for generation lived in many, many places around the world, different communities. But since the establishment of the states of Israel, the modern states of Israel in 1948, Israel was established with the majority of the Jewish, and these cultures are blended. So not only the Jewish around the world for generation, but also the Israelis, the people who live in Israel. So in this learning method, the Jewish Israeli method, the questions are more important than the answers. Students are encouraged to challenge teachers rather than to follow their instruction. Students are turning into teachers. They take role. When students studies, they take roles. One time they are the students, another time they are the teachers. They take topics and they take initiative and they teach other students. And the study is by arguing with each other. Let's take a look at some of these photos that I put here. And it illustrates a little bit of what we see. You can see young and old. You see them in small group of 2 or 3 people. This is called companionship study. And in this setting, they take turns who is the teacher and who is the students. In the top picture, you see a young boy and an older man. And this young boy is taking a topic to teach the older one. And in other pictures, you see that they sit in small groups, companionship together, and they argue. Each take opposite position. They are taking it systematically. This is the structure of the system, to take opposite position and to argue. And they switch back. So everyone gets a chance to have an opinion, a different opinion, to challenge it. Somebody challenge this opinion, you need to defend it. This is the way of study. Somebody that come from outside to a place like this and see people arguing and arguing and arguing and don't understand that actually this is the way of study. I want you to share some quotes from Professor Albert Einstein that relates to the questions that are more important than the answer. Albert Einstein said, if I had 1 hour to solve problems that my life depend on it, on the solution, I would spend 55 minutes looking for questions to understand, and then I will have 5 minutes to come with a solution. Within this hour, 55 minutes to ask questions and just 5 minutes for the solution. At the bottom, I quote, this is a well-known quote from Jewish parents to their children when the young child comes from school, elementary school, even younger, other schools. They don't ask their children, did you know the answer to the questions that the teacher ask, did you answer, but rather they say, did you ask good questions today in school? Did you ask good questions? To cultivate it within the Jewish culture, we can look back for thousands of years and see how we cultivating this approach of asking questions in our culture. So we have a holiday that we celebrate once a year. It's called Passover. And in this holiday, extended family get together for a meal in the evening. And sometimes it takes them 6 hours, 7 hours, 2 hours, but no less than a few hours. They sit, they talk about the history of the Jewish people, tell different stories regarding the history. But there is a one part there, it's a ritual that repeats itself every year, that the youngest children around the table, the youngest children in the family, asking 4 questions. And they start as early as age 3. So how somebody who age 3 asks questions, they are being taught a few weeks before the Passover Seder, before the sitting around the table. They are being taught in their schools, in the kindergarten, to ask the question. So this is a big ritual. Every Jewish boy or girl went through it in one way or another. And it's only the one child, and not only the one child around the table, the other children as well. But they go as young as they can. So think about it. The other thing that I said, that challenging teachers, asking questions, arguing, which is okay, it doesn't look rude, it's okay to argue and challenge. I also mentioned that the students are acting as the teachers and they study by arguments. So let me give you another method that we embedded, we installed it, we encourage and teach our children to develop this type of educational learning method. Every Jewish child that reached age 12 or 13, it's 12 for girls and 13 for boys. Every child is given an assignment. It's called Bar Bat Mitzvah. They are entitled to act and behave like adults. So they are giving a very complicated text from the Jewish script, the ancient script. They need to analyze it. They need to come in front of large audience and present opposite views. What do they learn? But they do it in presenting opposite views. They need to take a side and argue their positions. They need to explain why they took one side or another and argue. And they also are encouraged and required to contribute new insight, to come with new idea, to generate something original, to share something that what they learned that it's not obvious, that maybe people didn't hear about it. It's almost impossible if you do it for thousands of years to come with something new, but believe it or not, people come with something new. Because what they do is they take this complex text, analyze it, and tie it to current event, to something that is relevant in society today. And this way, they cover different aspects of developing skills. If we think about the different skills that we listed before. It's help you become open to new ideas. It's help you to build kind of, you feel comfortable with challenges. Of course, it helps you with communication, with analytical skills, with creativity. You come with solutions, ability to master different things, and many, many others. Right? Here on the list, on the right side of the slide, we have the list of the different skills and capabilities that we discussed and presented last session. I highlighted in yellow on this list the self-learner, the self-learnings that we covered today in the previous session. I also highlighted the risk taker, because the Jewish Israeli also have methodological way to promote risk takers. And I will talk to you in one of the future sessions about how the Jewish people and the Israelis are taking risks. One thing that in our value and norms that we say, with the obligation to try and come with new insight that we did at age 12, 13, come the rights and freedom to fail. We are providing people the space to take risks, and we'll talk about it in one of the next sessions, not the immediate next, but I want to cover other things, but we will talk about it. Thank you very much.